Hello and welcome to episode 92 of Glitch Report. My name is GnittWitt. Thank you so much for stopping by, saying hi, kicking it with me today on this Friday morning stream, the stream of dreams. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. You know it, you love it. I am here bringing you the news, bringing you the truth, no matter how bad it hurts. We got a wacky amount of news today. I'm of two minds of the show we're about to do today. On one hand, I really wish I had been able to do the show yesterday at the regularly scheduled time, because a huge amount of news happened between Thursday morning and now Friday morning. At the time of this recording, just a ton of news. I will just say real quick, was not feeling 100% yesterday. Bit of a cold thing going on, so if I pause for sniffles in order to not have the sniffles show up on the microphone and all that stuff, just please bear with me, because we will get through this show, I promise. But just a huge amount of news to get to this weekend, and the reason why I'm surprised is because this should be a bit of a lull in the games industry in terms of people preparing for next month, of course, being June, the summer game fest stuff that is going on, and all of that stuff. So like, when I look at, announcements and things like that, I am really surprised to see just how much news we are about to get through today. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk X-Defiant. Ubisoft's free-to-play first-person shooter finally has a full-on release date. We will cover that. A couple of companies announcing their lineups, or at least announcing dates for their Summer Game Fest adjacent lineups. I'm talking Xbox Game Showcase, I'm talking Tribeca Festival, and then of course THQ Nordic. But THQ Nordic is going to do it in August, but they're already prepping for it. We got a huge amount of Starfield news, Bethesda news, game developer closures, because it wouldn't be an episode of the Glitch Report if we didn't talk about game developers that are shutting down. So, wow. Already I'm like, whoa, we got to do this whole show. But that's okay. You're here. I'm here. We're going to get through this together. Don't worry. I promise I'm not contagious. And the other thing is, I've been playing some more Fallout 76. We'll talk Fallout 76. We're going to talk Cyberpunk 2077. I have been playing Cyberpunk 2077. I'm late to the party. Hey, listen, late to the party, but don't get too mad. I finally saw that Tetris movie. I know that video game adaptations are hot right now. I have gone ahead and watched the Tetris movie. So we will talk a little bit about that towards the end of the show. But let's quit beating around the bush. Biggest news story just dropped this morning. Helldivers 2 will require all Steam players to sign in with a PlayStation Network account. The requirement was removed at launch following technical issues, but it is back, baby. So, where do we start with this? Let me get a sip of this coffee, and then I'll tell you where we're at with this stuff. This is nothing new for the game industry. It feels like every game that you buy now requires some amount of, second tier account authentication, linking, in order to get access to some, if not all, of the game. Have you ever tried to play an Assassin's Creed game on a PlayStation without a Ubisoft account? The first time you do that, if you've never linked a PSN account to a Ubisoft account, basically it doesn't matter what Ubisoft game it is, but a big menu pops up and says, you better not be trying to play this game without a Ubisoft account. And then, you got a couple menu options. When that menu screen pops up, you hit the button that says, fool, I don't have one. And they're like, well, you better get one. You better go get a Ubisoft account. Don't be trying. So I like to imagine in my head that, and I'm not going to do an impression, but I like to imagine in my head that anytime you see like an account linking, a menu screen pops up that's like, hey man, you don't have an account, that it's in the voice of the late stand-up comedian Bernie Mac, R.I.P. Bernie Mac. and I will not do a Bernie Mac impression on here. Not today, Satan. But it feels like every time you try to play a EA game, a Ubisoft game, a Microsoft game, any type of game, it is trying to authenticate some type of account linking between your main account, whether that is your Steam account on PC, your PlayStation account, your Microsoft account on Xbox, your Nintendo account. Everybody wants a little slice of that data. They're just like, hey, can I get a little taste of that data? You know, Capcom's probably out there selling my information, being like, you see this guy played Resident Evil? Wouldn't you like to market sunscreen to him? I don't know what Capcom's doing with my data. Thing is that they already have my data, and when I see this, I'm not gonna fight too much on it. I'm not like I have not played Helldivers in months, plural. I've not played Helldivers 2 in quite some time, but I live in a world where I've already accepted that most of these game companies are going to require some amount of authentication. I've probably signed up for accounts I don't even remember signing up for to play one game that I don't play now. Like, and then it gets even messier. Well, just hear me out for just a moment in terms of how I've submitted to the machine. I have a Microsoft account. I have a Bethesda account. I have an Elder Scrolls Online account, and I have an Activision account, and I have a Blizzard account. All of those accounts are owned by the same company. The same company owns all of those accounts. But, you know, when I log in to play Fallout 76, it authenticates with my Bethesda account, even though you'd like to think that Microsoft already scraped all that data. But in fact, it's just legacy stuff that's been in these games since the PS3 at this point. So I'm not here to say if you can't beat them, join them. If you want to take to the streets and march and fight and all that stuff, more power to you. I'm so sick of hearing gamer sob stories, man. It's so hard to be a gamer. I had to log in with a Ubisoft account so I could buy a samurai costume for my Viking in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that shit. I'm done. I don't care. Now, you could argue, and we're going to get to it right now since I've said my piece. We're going to talk about the difference with this Helldivers 2 scenario. And the difference is that it was already a requirement at launch. But if you remember the launch of Helldivers 2, I actually started to tear up a little bit doing that fake crying. Oh my God, the Oscar-winning performances right here, let me tell you. Just wait until I start doing the video game equivalent of I'm Just Ken from Barbie. Point is, it was already baked into the Helldivers 2 scenario. It was always a requirement, but the game launched in such a busted, broken way that they kind of got rid of it for the longest time and are now implementing it. Now, a message from Sony on the game's Steam page confirms that the requirement will return on May 30th and that all players will need to have linked their Steam and PlayStation Network account by June 4th. But Chicken Little tells me that the sky is falling. Right? The post that they make is that due to technical issues at the launch of Helldivers 2, we allowed the linking requirements for Steam account to a PlayStation Network account to be temporarily optional. The grace period will now expire. Account linking plays a critical role in protecting our players and upholding the values and safety and security provided on PlayStation and PlayStation Studios games. This is our main way to protect players from griefing and abuse by enabling the banning of players that engage in that type of behavior. It also allows those players that have been banned the right to an appeal. As such, as of May 6, all new Helldivers 2 players on Steam will be required to connect their Steam account to a PlayStation Network account. Current players on Steam will start to see the mandatory login from May 30th and will be required to have linked to Steam and PlayStation Network account by June 4th. PlayStation Network accounts are free and easy to set up using this link. Pugging a Burrito in chat. I have not been streaming a lot on. I have not been doing a lot of gaming streaming in general. In fact, the only streaming that I've been doing these days is the Glitch Report podcast. All of my other content creation time have been put towards TikTok and Instagram Reel videos. But I appreciate those that want to watch me play games on the internet. However, I have found personally, just before we continue on with the news story, I found it to be far more engaging in terms of viewership growth and content growth and things like that to make the TikTok and Instagram Reel videos compared to the Twitch streaming. But I do the podcast live. I'll continue to do the podcast live. And that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. Now, Sony goes on to say that we understand that while this may be an inconvenience to some of you, this step will help us to continue to build a community that you are all proud to be a part of. I don't think they say anything that's completely unreasonable. I really don't. You can say, GnittWitt, you're sticking up to the man. You're a bootlicker. You're a friggin' coward. That's not very democracy of you. I don't know what you want from me. I don't know what you want. But nothing that they say here is completely unreasonable, especially if they can back it up by saying that it was always going to be part of the plan. It's just that their plan went to crap when the game launched broken. So I leave it up to you. If you go to Steam right now, and I'm going to regret doing this. But let's go to Steam. Right here, right now. Helldivers 2. I have uninstalled Helldivers 2. I need to go find Helldivers 2 on my list. Helldivers 2. I've uninstalled Helldivers 2. Let's go to the Steam page right now. Oh, weird. Recent user reviews for Helldivers 2 have gone from being mostly positive to mixed. It's fun. What do these people have to say? God, these people are so obnoxious. They're just so, it makes me sick, more sick than I already am. All right, I'm going to read this user review on Steam, and you can tell me if this person is cool or not. In all caps. The automatons have taken over Sony headquarters. Attention, all Helldivers. And then back to regular caps. The automatons have taken over Sony headquarters. As a result, they have recently made the decision to actively reduce our numbers by requiring linking, in parentheses, sending military services, with their PlayStation Network, in parentheses, Intel Collection Network, in order for our safety and security, in parentheses, undemocratic, and making it mandatory, in parentheses, unliberty-like, by May 26, 2024, Super Earth time. The Ministry of Truth has requested that this undemocratic behavior cease immediately and has declared it a threat to managed democracy. All Helldivers must put an end to this tyranny in game. This person has played Helldivers 2 for 43 hours on record and has given it a negative review. Another person, I'm not going to name the names of these people, said, get rid of the PSN link, stop selling data to big wigs. They've put 32 hours into the game. And I know people are like role playing the whole democracy thing and whatnot, but I don't, and I listen, I know this to be true because it's the internet and people's ability to critically think and people's general intelligence levels have gone out the damn window. So I'm not painting all Helldivers 2 players with a broad brush here. I don't think most of these Helldivers 2 players know what democracy actually is. I don't think they know what fascism actually is. And I understand that they're role playing and they want to be like, oh, democracy, vote, whatever. I still think these, the reactions to a lot of these, from a lot of these players is completely obnoxious. Arrowhead, the developer, have gone as far as to say that this was not their decision. This was Sony's decision. This was always Sony's decision. And I think this is the final thing I'm going to say about Helldivers 2. And I've said this before on the podcast. I'm going to say it again. The people that get so angry that they need to go and attempt to rewrite history and kind of mutate, their original thoughts and opinions on the game by saying, I loved this video game. This was Game of the Year 2024 up until this point. I think they're disingenuous. And I think they're people that attach far too much of their personality to their hobbies, because you should never be this upset. You should never be this mad about something like this. There are so many other games to play. Move on. Stop playing Helldivers 2. Stop playing it. But the idea that you're going to get a refund, or that you deserve a refund after playing 40 hours of Helldivers 2, forget it. There is no world in which you deserve a refund because of this. Now you could say, oh, well, they never enforce it. The fact is, black and white, clear as day. They said it was going to be in the game, and now it's going to come to the game later than they expected it to. People get so mad. And for those of you that are out there, like, looking at this content that I'm creating, looking at me and being like, well, you seem upset about it. You seem mad about it. This is literally what I do. I make content about video games. And the only emotion that I really have attached to all this is a sense of exhaustion that we have to go through this same song and dance with the internet and gamers in general being hyperbolic, overdramatic crybabies. Don't make me do the crying impression again. I will. Even with my stuffy nose, I will. But it's like, it almost like when I saw this, my reaction was, well, I should probably go leave a positive review of this game on Steam, because I enjoyed my time with Helldivers 2. I'd stop playing it. But I'm starting to think that more people should stop playing Helldivers and touch grass. I hate that analogy. I hate that saying, but I'm thinking maybe those people should go touch a little bit of grass. A lot of people at Take-Two are going to have a lot more time to touch grass because they've been laid off. That's fucked up. Take-Two is reportedly closing private division studios at Roll7 and Intercept Games. Roll7, if you don't know, are the people that made Rollerdrome. Those are also the same people that made Ollie Ollie and all of those games. Those are great games. I think Rollerdrome is like not amazing, but it's cool. It's neat. The idea that like you're on roller skates with a gun is, I mean, what's not to like? You're on roller skates with a gun. But this is part of the 5% workforce reduction that they had announced last month. Private Division, if you don't know, is basically the indie publishing label of Take-Two. So Take-Two does not make indie games. Take-Two, however, will publish indie games, and often they do so with their private division. However, their private division label started buying up other companies like Roll7 and Intercept Games. Intercept Games, if you don't know, the folks that work on Kerbal Space Program. You might be thinking, what is Kerbal Space Program? Kerbal Space Program, it's a video game, but it's like a rocket science simulator. Like I don't know how else to describe it, but it is a rocket science simulator where you play as these little Kerbal guys trying to leave the Earth's atmosphere, get to the moon, get to other planets and all that stuff. And it's not like some happy fun time like, oh, we're going to build goofy rockets. It's like, I'm doing math. Like I got to figure out what the delta V of this shit is to get out of orbit and the fuel management and all this stuff. It's a cool game. I got nothing against it. No, I got nothing. I think Kerbal Space Program is a wild game. I've enjoyed watching people smarter than me, which is most people, play that game. However, they've been let go, as well as Roll 7, the London-based studio behind Ollie Ollie and Rollerdrome. The point is that those are two studios, Roll 7 and Kerbal Space Program developer Intercept Games, that have been pretty much destroyed by Private Division and Take-Two. Now, one of the things to note is that Kerbal Space Program is a game that is in active development. It's one of those early access games. They're continuing to work on it. Now, according to Private Division, the label continues to make updates to Kerbal Space Program and plans to release the Weta Workshop Games Studio Tales of the Shire, a Lord of the Rings game, in the second half of 2024. So it seems like not all of Private Division is shut down, but it seems like a significant amount of people, which, you know, the reports kind of updated to say that a vast majority of the Private Division staff have reportedly been laid off. To me, I don't know how you continue to develop these games. I don't know how you continue to support these games and their creators when you let people go. Like, I feel like the writing is on the wall for games like Kerbal Space Program, which, for the record, Kerbal Space Program 1, you know, they eventually got that game out the door and all that stuff. Kerbal Space Program 2 has had a rough go at it in terms of being an early access game. So, you know, currently has mixed reviews on Steam, with the recent reviews being mostly negative, right? Their last update was April 25th, saying some improvements are on the way, but I don't think people have a lot of hope for this, especially after the studio has been let go. As always, wish everybody the best of luck, and I hope everybody lands on their feet. Ubisoft finally has a release date for their free-to-play first-person shooter X-Defiant. I feel like I have played this game like 10 years ago, and it's only now finally coming out. The game will now go live on May 21st on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC. Just so you know, you do need a Ubisoft account in order to play it, in case you're one of these Helldivers people that live in a fantasy world that thinks that, like, you don't need a secondary account to play a game. According to Ubisoft, the game's pre-season will start on that date and will last for 6 weeks before the proper season begins. During the preseason, players will have access to 14 levels, 5 modes, and 24 weapons, including 44 attachments for those weapons. Let's see here. It will also feature the previously confirmed 5 factions from the different Ubisoft series: Libertad from Far Cry, the Phantoms from Ghost Recon, Echelon from Splinter Cell, the Cleaners from The Division, and DedSec from Watch Dogs. DedSec will only be available after unlocking or purchasing. Following the preseason, X-Defiant will have a new season every 3 months, with year one's 4 seasons, each adding 1 more faction, 3 new weapons, and 3 new maps. Each season will also have a 90-tier battle pass. Now, for some context, how did we get here? The game has seen numerous delays over the months. In June 2023, Ubisoft stated that X-Defiant was expected to launch later that summer, with a final open season taking place on June 21st to June 23rd, after which the game would be released. By September, when it was clear that this summer window was going to be missed, executive producer Mark Rubin said that an October 2023 release appeared likely due to the game failing Microsoft and Sony's console certification tests. It was then announced in October that the game was being delayed again after its beta exposed some issues that had to be addressed before the game's preseason could be released. The game was initially revealed in July of 2021 as Tom Clancy's X-Defiant. At the time, the only included factions were from Splinter Cell, Ghost Recon, and The Division. But in March 2022, Ubisoft announced it was dropping the Tom Clancy branding and introducing additional factions from its wider catalog of IP. I want to give the Prince of Persia a gun, damn it. I want like Rayman with a gun. I don't want these like gruff military, like, you know, bros. I want Rayman. I want, first of all, I know it sounds stupid, but this game is already like the metaverse, like just throw a bunch of shit in a pot and cook it up, have it look all wacky and crazy. But like, if we're talking Ubisoft properties, I think they should have Rayman. Everybody loves Rayman. They should have the Assassin's Creed people in it. Give those people a gun. I want to see the Viking from Assassin's Creed with a AK-47. I would like to see the Prince of Persia, of course. Yeah, listen, I will play this game. I will be there with bells on day one. I am so curious to see how this game has shaped up since the last time I played it. I'm not like, this is not like, and I just need you to know that like, when I say I'm there day one and I'm looking forward to it, it is, a lot of it is morbid curiosity. And that's not me trying to temper my expectations for the game. This is not me saying this is one of my most anticipated games of 2024 or whatever. That's just me saying that like, I need to know what that game is. I need to know what that final release looks like, whether I like it, whether I hate it, whether I drop it after 2 hours or whether I play it for 2 years. I need to know what has happened to that game in the time since it's been developed. And I will be there to tell you how it all works out. May 21st, that is a Tuesday, so at least I'll be able to get a little bit of time with it before that week's podcast. The Xbox Games Showcase. Let's talk about Xbox Games Showcase. They're going to do one. I don't know what to tell you. They're doing one June 9th. It has been referred to as the Xbox Game Showcase and the Redacted Direct. Redacted Direct, you know, remember last year? If you remember last year Xbox Showcase was their showcase, followed by the Starfield Direct, where they talked all about Starfield. This time around, it's Redacted. And I have a good feeling that Redacted is Call of Duty. I don't want to like come across as like the smartest man who ever lived, because that's probably a fate worse than death. Ignorance is bliss after all, but keep listening to the podcast. You might learn something. With that said, Redacted is probably Call of Duty. If I had to guess, it's probably Call of Duty. So here's what you need to know. The Activision, Blizzard, Bethesda, and Xbox Game Studio event will be live streamed June 9th, starting at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And they're basically going to copy what they did last year, except instead of it being Starfield at the end for their direct, it'll probably be Call of Duty. So we can at least put one studio officially ready to do their event during the Summer Game Fest, time frame. That, of course, being June 9th, 10 a.m. Pacific. But that's not the only studio and company kind of gearing up for, for their, big event. The Tribeca Film Festival, which is running from June 5th to June 16th. They have announced the games that are going to be as part of their presentation. So, looking at this, I can't quite find the actual date for like their showcase, and I don't even quite know as of right now if they're going to do a traditional like live stream showcase the way they did in the past. But here's what you need to know. Tribeca Game Festival, June 5th. Tribeca Festival in general, June 5th to June 16th. If you're in New York City, from June 12th to June 16th, you'll be able to play some of the indie games. They will also be holding a panel for the making of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on June 14th. So there's a lot more stuff happening at this event than just a traditional like Twitch, YouTube live stream, whatever you want to call it. But here's the games that they're going to be kind of showing off. That a Ranger, a role puzzling adventure, Blueprints, Dark Web Streamer, Goodnight Universe, Neva, Skate Story, and Thank Goodness You're Here. Skate Story and Thank Goodness You're Here. Two games that I'm very, very looking forward to. I'm hoping that they do, the Tribeca does another, another showcase. It doesn't seem like they have quite announced, hey, we're going to do another live stream or not. But that's all you need to know. June 5th, June 16th. If we find out anything else, if we find anything, I'll let you know. But you can play exclusive demos of all the game selections, of all the games for free at the Tribeca Game Gallery from June 12th to June 16th. Oh, it seems like they might do their stream as part of the Final Fantasy Rebirth thing. It's really hard to say. But go to their full schedule. If I go to their full schedule. Yeah, this website does not, this Tribeca Festival site is not up to date the way I would need it to be to tell you if they're going to do the stream or not. Well, let's move on. Speaking of Square Enix, speaking of Final Fantasy, Square Enix has canceled a bunch of games. Square Enix looks to have canceled games, stating it will be more selective in the future. The company enacted a, quote, fundamental review of its development process earlier this year. Square Enix has suggested it's canceled or rescoped unannounced game projects as it continues to reassess its overall development strategy. During a meeting held on March 27th, the details of which were shared on Tuesday, the company decided it would, quote, revise the group's approach to development of high-definition games with the intention of being more selective and focused in the allocation of development resources. The publisher says that following this evaluation, it expects to report content abandonment losses of approximately $141 million. This suggests that several projects have been canceled or rescoped amid the challenging game market. Earlier this year, Square Enix decided to conduct a fundamental review of its development process in an attempt to improve the quality of its games, according to Bloomberg. The decision followed the appointment of Takashi Kiryu as its new president last year. During the conference call in February, Square Enix president Takashi Kiryu reportedly said, quote, we are reviewing from scratch what the organizational structure is and what the best way is to implement the contents of the pipeline, excuse me. The publisher is reportedly keen to reduce the amount of development it outsources to external studios and wants to focus on in-house development for its high-profile titles, with the aim being to increase both quality and profit margins. According to analysts who spoke to Bloomberg, the new development process will be including a new checking mechanism that will let the company make decisions on the game's quality at an earlier stage of development. Earlier this month, Daniel Ahmed, director of research and insights at Nico Partners, claimed that Final Fantasy VII's Rebirth, Square's biggest release of the year, has been underperforming. I just want to get this out of the way. So, Final Fantasy VII Remake sold very well. Final Fantasy XVI sold really well. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the sequel to Final Fantasy VII Remake, has not sold as well. Now, it doesn't take a rocket science. I don't need to have played Kerbal Space Program to know why. Because it's a sequel to a game that people may not have played. Nobody is going out there and being like, finally, part 2 of a game that I didn't play is out. I'm going to go buy that. No, they are selling Final Fantasy VII Rebirth to a smaller section of the audience of people that played Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because there are people who played Final Fantasy VII Remake and said, you know what? I'm good. I got all my Final Fantasy VII Remake needs. I don't need to see where this goes. There are people who did not like Final Fantasy VII Remake. And there are people who did like Final Fantasy VII Remake, but that is a less of the audience of people who played Remake in general. So of course, 7 Rebirth was always going to sell less. Always. Now, the other thing to note is that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is not on PC. If it was, I would have played it. I would have talked about it. I would have probably enjoyed it, but I haven't yet. So not all hope is lost when it comes to the sales for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but just think for a moment. Who gets into a sequel to a game? Well, it's not even a sequel. It's part 2. It's literally the second, it's like split into thirds, right? No one gets into the middle of a singular story like that, right? There are plenty of people whose first Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy 16. And guess what? You don't need to know a damn thing about any of the other Final Fantasies that came before it for Final Fantasy 16. But you're going to be real confused if you fired up Rebirth and was like, I don't know what's going on, right? It's a different scenario than something like Horizon Forbidden West, where Horizon Forbidden West really is trying to get you into that game. This is just my recent example, really trying to get you into that game without knowing anything about the original story. Whereas with 7 Rebirth, you kind of need to know what's going on. So of course they're going to sell less. It's not a surprise. Daniel Ahmed wrote on Twitter, it's selling about half of what Remake sold in the same time frame and looks like it'll have a weaker tail prior to any PS Plus like release. It's worth noting that Final Fantasy VII Remake was released for PS4 in April of 2020 during the pandemic, when the console had an install base of over 100 million units, double that of the PS5. Of course it was going to sell less. You don't need me to tell you that. 50 million PS5s compared to 100 million PS4s during a time when people were like, shit, I gotta stay inside. Inevitability. So let's talk the Fallout 4 next generation update. For those that are wondering, the PS Plus issue has been fixed. It has been fixed, but Kotaku has this handy little guide here that I would like to kind of pick at, that kind of talks about the good, the bad, and the ugly as it relates to the Fallout 4 next generation update. Let's see if we can take a closer look here. So what it seems like is that the console versions of that update are better than the console versions are better. So Xbox Series X and S, there appears to be a bug that locks the next gen version of the game to the 60 FPS mode. Disabling the performance mode seemingly does nothing. So if you want higher quality graphics, you're not going to get it, at least as of right now, because on Xbox Series X and S, the the graphic mode options don't actually change anything. On PlayStation 5, everything seems to be in order with the update itself. Instead, the problem is that not everyone can access it. That has been addressed from the looks of things. Let's see here. If you have all of the DLC for the PlayStation 5 version of Fallout 4, you need to delete that DLC and then reinstall it after the update. There have been missing textures in the game. A lot of like graphical bugs on top of everything else. On PC, ultra wide monitor support does not stretch the menus, so the menus are still in that kind of very narrow perspective for the for very narrow perspective for the mode. It's not great. So it seems like the PS5 version might be the best version of that game so far. I'm assuming we're going to get another update. I'm assuming we're going to get an update at some point, but kind of a buggy, busted, messy update for a game that's damn near 10 years old and should have, had a lot of this stuff in it to begin with. So if you are looking to get into Fallout 4, you could start now. You especially on like PS5, you could start now. You might be better off waiting another month or two for them to continue to fix the update. I just find it incredibly frustrating and disappointing that like they had this big update and it seems to have caused more harm than good. Todd Howard has been out there talking about Fallout. He said that Fallout will never leave the United States, which I think makes sense. If you've watched the show, if you don't know anything about Fallout, but you watch the show, you know there's something very Americana about Fallout. And I think it makes a lot of sense between the Red Scare and the Cold War and the communism versus capitalism, thing that goes on in Fallout. I think it makes a lot of sense to continue to focus Fallout in the United States. I personally would love to see some of the southern regions of Fallout represented. You want to do Florida. You want to get like swampy. You want to do Louisiana. You want to do Texas. I would really like to see some parts of Fallout, some parts of the United States represented in Fallout. I think Virginia is really neat in Fallout 76. I think actually Virginia might be up there with Fallout New Vegas as one of the most interesting locations that they have done. It's in West Virginia. In Fallout 76, I just find it to be much more aesthetically pleasing and more interesting environment. They do refer to it as Appalachia, but it is in West Virginia. So like that's the thing for me is like, I already think the universe and the lore and kind of the setting of Fallout is interesting. I'm just hoping that they continue to build on that with more varied locations throughout the United States. That being said, if they want to do a sequel to New Vegas, I would be more than happy to play go back to Vegas all over again in Fallout. Some of these are quick news stories. Starfield. Some news about Starfield because, why barely update Fallout when you can barely update Starfield? Starfield Shattered Space is their paid story expansion that is launching this fall. However, ahead of the game, they will be continuing to do free updates to the game. Todd Howard was on Kinda Funny talking about how, quote, Shattered Space is in the fall, but we have a big update that's coming really soon for Starfield. There's a lot of stuff. We redid the map. So we have some city map stuff if you remember, in Starfield, whenever you were in a town, you could not find your way around town because there were no maps. They're adding that to the game. The Shattered Space expansion was announced ahead of Starfield's release last September. It is included with the game's more expensive editions. I am a sucker. I bought the expensive edition, so I will be playing that. They refer to it as the first major expansion, featuring new story content, new locations, new gear, and much more. It has also said that it still plans to roll out significant new features and fixes for Starfield roughly every 6 months. Let's see if we can actually talk about what that next update is going to be. That update is 1.11.33. It adds better maps. It also adds a 60 frames per second option for Xbox. Let's see here. Big news for console players is that once this update is live on Xbox, you'll be able to tweak visual settings and have more control over the performance in Starfield. On Xbox Series X, players will be able to choose between 30 or 60 frames per second. Bethesda also added more options for folks with TVs that support variable refresh rating, letting you select FPS targets between 30, 40, or 60 FPS, or even an uncapped on 120 Hz VRR monitors. Starfield will now default to 40 FPS for folks that have the 120 hertz VRR display refresh rates. Other things to note: improved surface maps to help you better navigate planets and cities, new difficulty and gameplay options that let you customize your experience more precisely, a new ship decoration mode that will let you add props and items to the inside of your ship, tabs added to the container menus to help managing your inventory, and the ability to change traits and appearances after entering the Unity. General stability and performance improvements, general performance improvements for characters fleeing, avoidance, and pathfinding. Fix an issue that would cause a game's ship's maximum shield capacity to appear decreased after loading a save with certain assigned crew. Fix an issue where invisibility could persist on a companion's weapon after invisibility effect ended. Scanning flora and fauna XP is now also awarded via harvesting and killing. Resolved an issue with unintended harvest items appearing in flora from blended biomes. I'm not going to read all of these, but it's a lot of quality of life improvements. So here's the thing. We're almost like a year from when Starfield came out, and I feel like we're now in a position where this is the game that should have launched when it originally came out. Which means good news for PlayStation users: when Starfield inevitably comes to PlayStation, you will get the best version of Starfield day one at launch. I'm jealous. I will be going back to Starfield. I'm probably going to play Starfield when that next update comes out. There is this part of me that wants to wait until that expansion comes out. I'm not too sure, but I'm thinking that I would like to go back to Starfield. I think I've waited long enough with some of the updates that they've done that I would be willing to give the game a shot. Any announcement on when this comes out for real? Currently, it's in the beta branch on Steam, so you need to have the Steam version of the game in order to play this version. But let's just see here. There's no update on when it will be coming out from the looks of things. Remedy's Control multiplayer game has entered full production. The core loop is engaging, and the game brings a unique Remedy angle to the genre, as stated by Remedy themselves. The Finnish company said that the game has moved from production readiness stage, discussed last month to full production, meaning it has reached the final development stage before the game is launched. It added, based on wide internal playtests, we can see that the core loop is engaging and the game brings a unique Remedy angle to the genre. Billed as the studio's, quote, first step towards service-based games, Condor has an initial development budget of $27.1 million, which is pretty cheap by gaming scenarios. Built on Remedy's in-house Northlight engine, it is in development for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. So remember, this is a multiplayer spin-off of Control, right? They say, after the Hiss invasion, the oldest house is under lockdown, a boiling pot of volatile and dangerous supernatural forces. The Remedy said of the game in its annual financial report, which was published in March. Trapped within the last vestige of the Federal Bureau of Control, who will need to take a stand and push back to regain control. Desperate times require desperate measures, and everyone is needed. Basically saying that you're going to play as somebody from the Federal Bureau of Control in the oldest house fighting against the Hiss invasion. And that makes sense to people who played Control. They went on to say the Control franchise is larger than one story or one character. It continued, with Codename Condor, we invite players on a collective journey into the depths of the oldest house. Within, they'll face overwhelming enemies and obstacles, but by relying on their gear and each other, they will have a chance for survival. Condor will be a service-based fixed price game rather than a free-to-play title. These are premium games that may have a lower initial price point, but a long tail of revenue through updates, game expansions, and potentially microtransactions. It was also reported that Tencent has increased its shareholding in Remedy to 14.8%. The Chinese tech giant, which had held 5.01% shareholding as of November 2022, is scheduled to publish an upcoming Remedy game codenamed Kestrel. So Tencent is going to publish one of Remedy's games, but they've also increased its shareholding in Remedy to 14.8%. Control's multiplayer game seemingly going to be the next game from Remedy. THQ Nordic has announced their big event. It's not happening until August 2nd, and that's at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. THQ Nordic will serve news for the Gothic 1 remake, Titan Quest 2, and much more, but we'll keep the grim secrets to ourselves for now, assuming that not everybody at THQ Nordic and parent company Embracer Group isn't completely let go between then and now. Now, you remember that THQ parent company Embracer recently announced plans to split into 3 separate entities: Asmodee, Coffee Stain and Friends, and Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends. Coffee Stain will basically control THQ Nordic, if you forgot how that works. Anyways, real quick one. August 2nd, THQ Nordic doing their 2024 showcase. And then some real quick news stories, and I'm not trying to get through these as quick as I can because I want to. I'm just getting to it because it kind of is what it is. Unfortunately, a Horizon Call of the Mountain director made redundant by Firesprite. Horizon Call of the Mountain game director Alex Barnes has been made redundant by the developer. This is part of PlayStation's plan to lay off 900 employees worldwide, or about 8% of its workforce. Barnes said that he had been made redundant from the studio after almost 7 years. Quote, "It has been a tough time over the past few months. Thank you to all the folks that have continued to help each other through all of this. You have been incredible." Remember that, Firesprite Studio was the company that was reportedly working on a Twisted Metal reboot. Sorry, there's a fly in this room all of a sudden, which is great. And I'm not swatting at my face because of the idea of a Twisted Metal reboot, though I'm going to be honest, I could not care less about a Twisted Metal reboot. Morbid curiosity, but that's about it. But this is also the company that made Horizon Call of the Mountain, the PSVR 2's killer app. If you remember PSVR 2. I don't think a lot of people remember the PSVR 2, let alone Horizon Call of the Mountain. But best of luck to Alex Barnes and everybody at Firesprite. And then finally, Deliver Us Mars Studio Kaioken has laid off its whole team. Its founder said they hope to rebuild the company brick by brick. Man, just brutal. Just brutal. Kaioken announced that it had laid off 4 of its core team of 19 after its founders took pay cuts and went without salaries for, quote, the past few months. And in March, the studio revealed it had unsuccessfully pitched 5 games to 40 publishers in more than 200 meetings over the previous 2 years. In a statement published to Twitter, CEO Cohen Dietman and Managing Director Paul Dietman said the Netherlands-based studio was forced into the decision after exhausting all possible options for completing planned projects or taking on other work. Basically, work dried up for that studio. No one was willing to invest in that studio. No one wanted any of their games. Real tough, right? Because this isn't a scenario where big wigs showed up and said, okay, we want our golden parachutes to stay golden. You're all going to get laid off. This is a scenario where just the work dried up for these people. Such tough, really conservative times out there when it comes to game investments. And I wish everybody at Kaioken the best as they land on their feet. Let's talk games that I've been playing. We are in this pretty quiet period for games. I'll be honest. Pretty quiet, like, you know, not a lot of big games coming out. Some of the biggest games coming out have been ports like Horizon Forbidden West and like later this month, Ghost of Tsushima. But we're in a bit of a quiet period. And I mentioned it being a quiet period because I've played games my entire life. That's not a brag. That's not me saying anything other than ever since I'm going to be turning 30 soon. And ever since I was about 4 years old or so, I've been playing video games. And I've kind of never stopped playing video games. There's never really been a point in my life where I dropped games in general for, a significant period of time. I probably can't even think of scenarios where I've dropped it for months on end, let alone years. So when I say I've been playing games my entire life, I kind of mean like non-stop playing games my entire life. And there's nothing wrong with that. And for some folks, I know that like, life gets in the way, job gets in the way, family gets in the way of gaming or whatever your hobbies are. But for me, I've been fortunate enough to not necessarily run into, anything that has significantly prevented me from playing games. And when I say games, I mean games in like the sense that I've always been playing games, right? It's one thing to be like, this week at work has been super busy, so the only time I've had to play games is when I'm commuting on the train, playing games on my phone or whatever the case is. I mean, like playing games the way you've always played games consistently, right? With that said, I'm not slowing down by any means. I can look at the time I've spent playing games just within this week alone. I can tell you that I've not slowed down. But I found myself in a very picky phase with games. Last year, I was pretty consistent with continuing to play through games on my backlog, clearing up games in my backlog just over and over and over again, just like, loading up an old save of a game I never finished, beating that, starting a new game I never played, beat that. Like, I was pretty consistent, right? This year has not been like that. I've picked out a lot of games here and there, right? Games that came out this year, games that didn't come out this year. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I just find myself in a very picky and fussy phase right now with my gaming, and that might change in the next week or two. I don't know. But that's kind of where I'm at, where I'm revisiting a lot of games as of right now, revisiting games, playing games I've never played before that are older games like Fallout 76. Looking forward to updates to games that I have played in the past. I'm looking forward to that Diablo 4 update. I'm looking forward to the Starfield update. But those are games that I've already played, and those are games that I might play for a few minutes, a few hours, drop it, and move on to something else. So while I'm not like super self-conscious of the idea of like constantly talking about the games I've been picking at over the last few weeks, like Cyberpunk 2077, like Fallout 76, like Horizon Forbidden West. That's what I've been doing. I've been kind of playing with my food, so to speak, which is something that doesn't often happen with me in games. I feel like there's always a game or two that I can consistently play through to completion. But in the case of something like Fallout 76, like that's a live service game. Like that game doesn't have a traditional end to it. It's going to end when I feel like walking away from it and probably never playing it again, which has not happened, right? In the case of Cyberpunk 2077, that's a game that I've already beat once, and now I'm playing at a much slower pace, taking more time to level up my character, explore some of the side content that I didn't do when I originally played the game. And in the case of Horizon Forbidden West, I have just not had a lot of motivation to go back and play much, if any, of that game. But I am a believer that like, hey, I spent good money on, Horizon. I should probably play it. I should probably beat it. So if there ever comes a time where I just buckle down and, grind it out, so be it. But for now, there's not a lot of games that I plan on buying because I feel like I'm at this point where I'm picking at so many games. So if Ghost of Tsushima comes out and I don't get around to playing it at launch, so be it. I would like to. It's probably a game that I will play at the very least at some point in 2024. But right now I'm just like picking at games. And I'm trying not to buy any games because I have so many games to play. Games are coming out on things like Game Pass all the time. Have a Nice Death just came out on Game Pass. Manor Lords came out on Game Pass. Games that I have been curious to check out and play at some point. Later this month, Senua's Saga, Hellblade 2 is coming out, along with Little Kitty Big City, a game that I played a little bit as a demo on Steam. Curious about that, but yeah, like I'll give you some examples of like what I mean by playing with my food. So in Cyberpunk 2077, I have mostly been ignoring the main story and mostly just been doing some of the side content. The vigilante stuff, clearing out a lot of the gangs, on, gang icons on the map, whether they're gangs in one part of the city or not, but I've been mostly just doing, I think they're called like the NCPD, assault in progress or whatever. And they're basically little icons on the map where there's a bunch of gang members standing around, in an area, and you can kill them however you want and you move on. Right. There are also the side missions where they're the fixers, and the fixers have basically very short fetch quests for you to do. Like, hey, go into this building, steal this thing, get out. Hey, go kill this person in this building, get out. Go into this area, do some real quick short thing. We're going to give you the slightest bit of story context as to why you're doing it, and then away you go. Then there's also the side missions, which are more in-depth, multi-step, story-based missions. I have not gotten to those yet, because I've been doing a lot of the other, very short, not meaningless. I mean, I get stuff out of doing the NCPD assault in progress. I get stuff out of doing the gigs in Cyberpunk, but like a lot of other open world games, they have a hierarchy for the most important content. And right now, I've spent most of my time in Cyberpunk doing the least important story-based content. In Fallout 76, I've tried to focus as much as possible on that main story. The problem is that, Fallout 76 is a game where you leave the vault in order to, kind of repopulate the world. So there's not a lot of people, like human beings, to talk to in Fallout 76 compared to something like Fallout 4. And as such, there's not a lot of story in Fallout 76 to drag you through a lot of the content. So I find myself just being like, why am I doing this? Why am I talking to this robot? Why does this robot want me to clean up like 10 beer bottles at a gun range? And then, I got like it's a lot of carrot on the stick stuff of like, do this small meaningless task to get these perks and rewards and points and, items and all that stuff, which is the same as what I'm doing in Cyberpunk. So right now I feel like I'm just cleaning up, a lot of junk in these open world games, right? Something that I didn't really do in Horizon Forbidden West, but find myself compelled to do in Fallout. Like, if there's something on this checklist, I'm going to do it, right? I don't really care what the story is. I don't care what I'm doing. But if there's, loot and rewards to be had for doing small tasks, damn it, I'm going to do it. And I feel like that's things that I've kind of been doing on both Cyberpunk 2077 and Fallout 76, which means that if I ever do go back to Horizon Forbidden West, I'll probably just focus as much on that story as humanly possible. But that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just playing with my food. I'm just picking at these games, thinking about installing other games, looking at other games. Maybe now is the time to get into Helldivers 2 again. I don't know. But that is kind of where I'm at. I know some people are very focused on those story-based games. People are very focused on the, adventure games or story games or whatever types of games they're into, games that you can actually see through and play to the end in a very linear fashion. Right now, that's just not what's compelling me. Like, I'm not necessarily compelled by a lot of story-based games at the moment to pull me through. It's been a scenario where it's like, I'm going to fire up Fallout 76 and then I'm going to have some video on in the background while I, shoot radioactive frogs in the wasteland to get better guns or whatever it is that I'm doing. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. People are going to play games for different reasons, right? But that's where I'm at. Is been kind of playing with my food, so to speak, when it comes to the games that I have been playing. But, games are coming out on the horizon to look forward to. I am very curious to see how that PC version of Ghost of Tsushima shapes out to be. If we go to Game Informer 2024, and look at release dates for May, What do we got in May? I feel like we've already talked about some of the games in May. V Rising is getting its full release. That is the Vampire Survivor game. Well, I shouldn't say Vampire Survivors because that's a different game. The like vampire crafting survival game, V Rising. That's out May 8th, Little Kitty Big City, May 9th. Ghost of Tsushima PC version, May 16th. X Defiant, May 21st. Humanity's coming to Xbox, May 30th. Multiverses is supposed to be coming out May 28th. So like, there's probably a bunch of games that I'm going to be poking at, messing around with. Senua's Saga, May 21st as well. So there's games that I'll be playing, but for now, I've just been kind of picking at what I have been picking at, and I'll probably continue to do so for the next few weeks. That's going to do it for the podcast. I apologize for being sick. I try my best to get through this podcast to the best of my abilities. Kind of a brain foggy moment throughout some of the episodes. A little bit of rambling, but really that's no different than when I'm at 100% health. Anyways, so with that said, I have been GnittWitt. You can find everything that I do over at my Linktree, linktree.com/GnittWitt, GnittWitt, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, you name it. I'm going to talk about that Tetris movie next week. I have got to stop talking. I got to take care of myself. I'm doing okay. I'm a lot better than yesterday. So don't worry too much about me. I am on the mend. I will be good as I can be for next week. But yeah, I'm going to talk about that Tetris movie next week. I just gotta take care of myself, and we'll see you all next week. Take care of yourself, and we'll do this all again next week. I have been GnittWitt. This has been Glitch Report. Thank you so much for listening, watching, and hanging out. We'll see you next week.